And going to Davis again, underthrown, and this time it's picked off. A one-handed interception by Andrew Booth. Go Tigers.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back once again. My name is Jeffrey Gardner. We are here on episode 89. Hard to believe that we are that far along, but episode 89 of Upset Alert. It is the ultimate college football podcast celebrating all 130 teams in FBS. Of course, we are coming at you live here on a Thursday afternoon, about 2 p.m. Eastern time, and we are ready to get some college football talk going here. Ready to get our weekly picks under kind of on record, I guess, as we go into the weekend of college football. Thank you to those who are joining us, however you're joining us today, whether it's live here on twitch.tv/robotbraineater, whether it is on YouTube later on, whether it's on podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. We're on all those podcast services. I see our pal Sippy Show already in the Twitch chat. So again, if you want to join us live on video when we are streaming the show, have your comments read out live on the air, then join us at twitch.tv/robotbraineater, and we will get to you that way. Otherwise, like I said, if you're joining us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google, however you're joining us today, thank you so much for joining us. We're also on Twitter at UpsetAlertPod. And now that we've got kind of some of that housekeeping stuff out of the way, we will get into some early week results here, and then we'll jump head first into these predictions in a week that once again looks like it's going to be pretty snake-bitten by some cancellations, by some postponements. And then of course, we'll get into all of the kind of big games. There's a handful of big games, as the episode title implies. I think there's really three big conference showdowns that we're going to get to this weekend that will ultimately determine some conference champions, I believe. But we'll get to that, of course, in due time. Let's start off with a little bit of early week results. Like I said, we had some games Tuesday night, some games Wednesday night, some action going on. So let's get into a little bit of quick-hitting kind of results there. We had Tuesday night, two games. We had Buffalo win over Bowling Green 42-17. Not too much to say about that one. I think that was about what we expected. Kent State won over Akron, dropped 69 points, and wins that one 69-35 over the Zips, one of the worst teams in college football. Wednesday, last night, we had Ball State win over Northern Illinois 31-25. Toledo wins over Eastern Michigan on the road 45-28. And then probably the big matchup from this week in the MAC was Western Michigan at Central Michigan. Western Michigan wins that one in a serious shootout, 52-44. I think that was the most surprising result of the week in the MAC for me. Personally, I had Central Michigan winning that game, but regardless, two good teams in the MAC. Maybe the two best teams in the MAC remains to be seen, but Western Michigan is kind of the team to beat right now in the MAC, or so it would appear. Them and Buffalo right in that conversation. Certainly, Western Michigan moves to 3-0 with the win over Central Michigan, so very quietly building toward a good season over at Western Michigan, the old home of P.J. Fleck. Of course, the boat might be rowing the wrong way in Minnesota, but it seems to be righted. The ship has been righted in Western Michigan this year. So let's get into a little bit of Thursday night. So tonight's games, there's just one game on the slate. There were two. One got canceled. Tulane is going to be at number 25 Tulsa tonight. This is 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. Tulsa comes in as about a 6-point favorite in this game. Tulsa should be the winner here. I like this team probably by more than that 6-point margin. Not that Tulane is bad or anything like that, but Tulsa has been very quietly putting together a good season. I say quietly until last weekend. That was when they got that big win. This is a team that has only played 5 games to this point in the season, even though they started early like most teams in the AAC did. Think back to seeing Cincinnati and UCF and Memphis and all those teams playing early in the year. Tulsa had a lot of cancellations on their schedule this year, so they have only played 5 games, so a little less sexy at 4-1 than, say, Cincinnati, who's got a lot more games under their belt. But this is a good Tulsa team, as I think they've proven by now. Tulane is not bad, but they're sitting there at 5-4 against a fairly challenging schedule relative to how good they are. So I like Tulsa to win and probably cover tonight on ESPN at 7:30. Tomorrow night, we've got a few games on here. Had a UAB at UTEP get canceled, so we've got Syracuse at Illinois. That is 7 p.m. on ESPN Friday night. Louisville, a 19-point favorite in this game. That feels a little high to me. Both of these teams are pretty bad, to be quite frank. Louisville comes in at 2-6. Syracuse 1-7 coming into this one. I don't know that these teams are really that much different in terms of their talent level to justify the 19-point spread for Louisville. So I do think Louisville wins that one, but I'm probably going to give it to Syracuse in terms of covering the spread. Friday, 7:30 p.m., Big Ten Network. We've got Minnesota hosting Purdue. Purdue, a 2.5-point favorite in this one. I guess at this point, I do like Purdue on the road against Minnesota, which is something I definitely didn't expect to say coming into the season. Minnesota is a team that has high expectations, or at least had high expectations coming into the year after an undefeated regular season last year. But just 1-3 to this point. I got to give the edge to the Boilermakers on the road here. Probably going to be a pretty close one, maybe an ugly game, quite frankly. Friday night on the Big Ten Network. 8 p.m. CBS Sports Network Friday night. We've got Florida Atlantic hosting UMass. I won't waste much of your time with this one. Florida Atlantic, a 33-point favorite. They're going to win big over UMass, who's one of the worst teams in college football. Friday night, 9:30 p.m. on Fox Sports 1, Air Force is hosting New Mexico. Air Force, a 7-point favorite in this one. Just a combined 1-5 record between these two teams. I do like Air Force to win this one and probably cover that 7-point spread. New Mexico is just not very good at all. Then we get into Saturday's slate of games, and there are some good ones here. There are some really good ones, and we're going to go ahead and kick it off with one of the big ones. The big game in the Big Ten this week is noon on Fox, that big noon kickoff, they say. It's number 3 Ohio State hosting number 9 Indiana. If you can believe it, this is just blowing my mind. Maybe I'm wrong, as I many times am. Vegas does sometimes know more than we do about football. Ohio State is a 20.5-point favorite in this game. 20.5-point favorite in this football game. That seems way too big to me. If you're looking for some easy money, this is my pick of the week. Indiana plus 20.5. That just seems too... that's just absurdly large, considering how well Indiana has played to this point in the season. I know Ohio State is Ohio State. I think Ohio State is going to win this game, certainly, but I don't expect them to win by 3 touchdowns necessarily against what has looked like a really good Indiana Hoosiers football team. So I am rolling with the Hoosiers to keep it closer than 3 touchdowns, but Ohio State, I do think, is going to win the game. I don't know that Indiana necessarily challenges them or leads early or anything like that, but I wouldn't be shocked to see something like that. I don't know that I would be shocked to see Indiana come out and maybe score a couple really quick, and then Ohio State have to bounce back and play from behind early. I don't know that would necessarily shock me again, but that's not what I'm going to predict to happen. I do think Ohio State, for the most part, is going to control this game, but Indiana's going to score some points in the football game. Ohio State's going to give up a few to them at least, but Justin Fields is a legit Heisman Trophy contender. He is going to do the thing on Saturday. The Buckeyes are going to get the win at home. Noon on ABC, we got number 4 Clemson on the road at Florida State. Remember when this was a good game? It seems like a million years ago. Florida State has been so bad the last couple of seasons. They come into this game at 2-6. Number 4 Clemson is 7-1 with that one loss coming without Trevor Lawrence against Notre Dame. Of course, Trevor Lawrence will be available in this game. Clemson could win this game with Stetson Bennett from UGA at quarterback. And that is saying quite a lot if for my Georgia fans out there. Clemson is going to roll in this one. They're a 35.5-point favorite. I won't waste your time any further. Noon on ESPN, we have number 6 Florida on the road against the winless Vanderbilt Commodores. Another one I won't waste your time with. Florida's a 31.5-point favorite. I think they're probably going to cover. They might shut Vanderbilt out in this game, quite frankly. Kyle Trask, over-under on passing touchdowns should be at least 5 in this game. Florida wins big. Noon on ESPN2. Just like that, we've got another huge game. So there's 2 huge games at least in this noon time slot. Noon on ESPN2 here. Number 15, Coastal Carolina hosting App State. Now, App State is not ranked, but they're a 6-1 team, and they are undefeated in Sun Belt Conference play. If you are a fan of Sun Belt football, you should be watching this game. If you are keeping an eye out for a team that might get into a New Year's Six Bowl as a group of 5 team this year, you also should be watching this game. If you're a fan of good college football, you should be watching this game. Quite frankly, the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina are undefeated. They're 7-0, something that I don't think anyone really expected coming into this season. I will quite frankly tell you, I haven't eaten the crow on this one in a few weeks, so here it is. Preseason, I predicted Coastal Carolina to go 3-9. I think that that was an episode where we had Gabe Thomas on, my buddy, who's a good Sun Belt football fan, big Georgia Southern fan, and alum as well. I believe he predicted them to do not much better. He might have picked them at 4-8 or something like that. But I don't think either of us had this team with even a winning record, much less starting the year 7-0 and being favored by 5.5 over the App State Mountaineers. It could get interesting. This one could be a really, really good football game. App State could win this. Make no mistake, App State could win this football game and move on to the Sun Belt Conference Championship game, because if they win and win out from there, they're going to shut the shots out of the Sun Belt Conference Championship game against the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. I'm not going to pick that to happen, quite frankly. I am going to pick Coastal Carolina in this football game, but it's going to be close to me. I think it might even be closer than that 5.5-point margin. There's some good games on the slate, as we see. Sippy Show in the Twitch chat says this will be a great week for football. I absolutely agree. Last week was miserable in terms of matchups. There were no ranked matchups. There were no really big games last weekend, it felt like. And on top of that, we had something like 15 games get postponed or canceled. This week, there have actually been just as many games postponed or canceled already, but there's so many big games, it doesn't feel like as big of a deal, really. It doesn't feel like the weekend's lineup is really taking a big hit. Coastal Carolina, I do think, is going to win this one close, so we'll move on from there. Sippy Show, I see your comment about Southern Miss UTSA. I'm going to get to that. In a little bit here. Noon on ESPN Plus, we got Memphis hosting Stephen F. Austin. Not going to waste your time here. Memphis wins big. They're a 30.5-point favorite. Noon on Big Ten Network, Nebraska hosting Illinois. 2 one-win teams. 1-2 Nebraska hosting 1-3 Illinois. I like Nebraska in this football game. They're a 15.5-point favorite. We will see. We will see here if really that kind of margin is accurate. I don't know how much faith I have in Nebraska to beat someone by 16 points or more, even when they're as bad as Illinois. But I like the Huskers in this one fairly comfortably. Noon on ESPNU, Texas State hosting Arkansas State. Arkansas State just a 6-point favorite in this game. I like the Red Wolves by more than that 6-point margin. Give me Arkansas State on the road pretty comfortably, I think, against a bad Texas State team. East Carolina at Temple. This is noon on ESPN+. East Carolina actually a 3.5-point favorite on the road here. That was a little surprising to me. You got my live reaction to that. I think Temple wins this game outright, personally. Neither one of these teams are good. This is 1-6 East Carolina at 1-5 Temple. I think Temple is a little bit better than East Carolina, if not by a huge margin. As Sippy Show says, give me Arkansas State as well and give me Temple. Yeah, I agree with both of those picks right there. Noon, CBS Sports Network. We have a sneaky good game. Another good one in that noon time slot. 6-2 teams matching up as Georgia Southern is on the road against Army. Army is a 4-point favorite in this game. This is a really interesting one to me. We've seen Army at times struggle. I mean, they got beat pretty bad by Tulane recently, but at the same time, this is a 6-win team who has looked good offensively. They've done their thing, kind of drained the clock for the most part against most teams. Again, not against Tulane. They looked awful in that game. But this is a good Army team. This is a Georgia Southern team that might not quite be as good as their record. I do think Army is going to probably, as Sippy Show says in the chat, give me Army bounces back. I agree. I think Army bounces back this week. I'm sorry to my buddy Gabe at Georgia Southern. Still hail Southern, of course. But and they're still having a good year, I think, Georgia Southern this year. But Army is, to me, on paper, the better team. I think they get a win here. It's not going to be just a blowout win, I don't think, but I do expect them to cover that 4-point margin, probably somewhere in a 1 to 2 touchdown range for the Black Knights at home. We have LSU on the road at Arkansas. This is the last one in the noon time slot. This is SEC Network. It's funny watching this one because a year ago we would have called someone crazy if they ever said this, but Arkansas opened as a 2.5-point favorite in this game. LSU now is the 2.5-point favorite, so the line has moved all the way to the other side with the same margin. Crazy to think that the defending national champions on the road against Arkansas opened as almost a field goal underdog. That just says a lot about the way LSU has looked at times this year. Their defense has been unforgivably bad, criminally bad this season. Their offense has had varying degrees of success, I guess is the best you can say about LSU this year. Arkansas has certainly outperformed expectations, as you actually see video live here on Twitch of them scoring a long touchdown against the Florida Gators last week. This is an Arkansas team that has some issues for sure. They have a lot of talent, just lacking in various areas of the field, but they find ways to outplay expectations every week. I do think this Arkansas team is capable of winning against LSU this weekend at home. This is a 3-4 Arkansas team that a lot of us thought might go 0-10 or 1-9 in the SEC this year. LSU comes into this one at 2-3. With the way LSU has played defense, I cannot trust this team to win against anybody pretty much. I am going to give it to Arkansas at home in a close one, but this one is as close to a coin flip as I can think of for the entire weekend slate. We have a slew of them in a row here that were canceled or postponed, so I'm just going to read these off real quick. Michigan State at Maryland, Wake Forest at Duke, Houston at SMU, and Charlotte at Marshall, all postponed or canceled. So not much to say really about any of those particularly. No real crazy good matchups in that. We're not missing too much, I don't think. And by the way, Central Arkansas at Louisiana, number 24 Louisiana, that game also canceled this weekend. So not much going on there. We move into the 2 p.m. time slot, ESPN3, so streaming only. Western Kentucky is hosting Florida International. Western Kentucky has not looked great for the most part this year. They had kind of an ugly win against Southern Miss this past weekend. 10-7, I believe, was the final in that one. Hilltoppers are favored by a touchdown in this game over FIU. FIU is just 0-4 coming into this one, so I do give the edge to Western Kentucky to pick up another win and move to 4-6 on the year. Another 2 p.m. game, also ESPN3, North Texas hosting Rice. North Texas is a 1-point favorite in this one. I actually am going to roll with Rice on the road in this one. Rice just 1-1 to this point in the season, but they've maybe looked a little better than I thought they would. North Texas, who I didn't have particularly high expectations for anyway, has maybe looked a little worse than I expected them to this point in the season, so I'm going to give this to the Rice Owls on the road as a minor upset there. We move into 3 p.m. ESPN3, number 8, BYU is going to be hosting North Alabama. I will not waste your time there. BYU wins by about 50 in all likelihood. They're a 47.5-point favorite, which is about as big of a line as you're ever going to see in a college football game. 3 p.m. ESPN Plus. We do have Southern Miss hosting UTSA. UTSA is a 9-point favorite on the road over the Golden Eagles. UTSA 5-4 coming into this one. Southern Miss, of course, just 2-6. Sippy Show in the chat earlier already dropped his prediction for an upset, saying Southern Miss will beat UTSA. Based on what I've seen thus far from both teams, quite frankly, I don't know if I can, on good faith, pick Southern Miss to win this football game. I do want to believe in this Southern Miss team. I had high hopes for them early in the season, in the preseason, really, I should say, because as the season started, it didn't last long. But UTSA is a team that has outperformed my expectations a little bit this season. Southern Miss certainly has underperformed what my expectations for them were to this point in the season. So 3 p.m. ESPN Plus on Saturday, I am rolling with UTSA. That 9-point margin feels about right to me. I don't think this team is really going to go on the road and blow out Southern Miss, but I do think UTSA picks up probably a fairly close win, maybe a 2-score win tops on the road against the Golden Eagles there. Saturday, 3:30. This one's on ESPN. We got number 7 Cincinnati at UCF. This is a pretty big game, too. I didn't include this one in the title, but this is a huge one in the American Athletic Conference as well. Not as big in terms of conference championship implications because UCF has pretty much played themselves out of the AAC championship game already with 2 conference losses. Cincinnati, however, very much in play, and some would argue in play for a college football playoff spot, kind of a dark horse at least in that conversation a little bit. The Bearcats have a tough task ahead of them here. Make no mistake, UCF is absolutely capable of winning this game. Cincinnati comes in as a 6-point favorite. I am so tempted to pick UCF in this football game. Cincinnati has absolutely looked like the better team thus far this season, but it's weird to imagine for a UCF team that hasn't had a ton of turnover and has played so well in recent seasons. It's hard to imagine them having a 3-loss regular season for the first time in a while. I am going to roll with Cincinnati in this game. I can't, on good faith, pick UCF, but I really, really want to. This may be one of those where I look back and say, should have gone with my gut. My gut is telling me UCF is going to win this football game, but my brain is telling me Cincinnati on the road seems like a safe bet. They will move to 8-0, I think, will the Bearcats after this weekend's win against UCF. We've got another good one, 3:30 p.m. ABC, another one that maybe I should have thought about including in the episode's title. Two more undefeated Big Ten teams. Number 10, Wisconsin on the road against number 19, Northwestern. Northwestern is 4-0. Wisconsin 2-0 in this one. There is actually a chance, and this was brought up on a college football podcast that I listened to, that apparently one of the tiebreakers in the way that they've established the Big Ten schedule this year is that if two teams have the same conference record, one of the tiebreakers that they use is who has played more games. Essentially saying, it's more impressive to go 8-0 than it is to go 6-0, as an example. In that kind of world where COVID is canceling multiple games for a team like Wisconsin, there is an outside chance that if they both say were to have the same number of conference losses at the end of the year, Northwestern would win that tiebreaker and potentially be their division champion or something like that. It's kind of weird. And I may have actually misspoke on that, as I believe Northwestern is actually in the opposite division from Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken. But Northwestern, it's been a pretty good team. They've been a surprise for sure thus far this season. 4-0. As I said, Wisconsin at 2-0. Wisconsin looked like the real deal in both of their games so far this year. Northwestern, I don't think, is on their level, even though they have greatly surprised me to this point. I'm going to give it to Wisconsin on the road here as a 7.5-point favorite. I do think the Badgers win that football game on the road. Northwestern could give them a good game, though, and there is an outside chance that I at least am willing to acknowledge that Northwestern wins here at home. That would be almost a program-altering type of win for the Northwestern Wildcats if they did pick up that top 10 win over Wisconsin, but I'm giving it to Wisconsin on the road. 3:30 ESPN2, we've got UCLA at number 11, Oregon. Oregon is 2-0. Maybe not the sexiest of wins, just Stanford and Oregon State that they have beaten to this point, but guess what? That's the nature of playing in the Pac-12. Most of the teams aren't that great. They're going to host UCLA this week. UCLA comes in at 1-1. Oregon's about a 2-touchdown favorite. I got the Ducks. Not going to waste much of your time with that one. I think the Ducks are a pretty comfortable, pretty safe bet to win this one. 3:30 ESPN2. 3:30 on ESPN3. We got Mid-Tennessee at Troy. I like Troy in this one. Troy's an 11.5-point favorite. Kind of a weird tidbit, I guess, that you can look at here is if you look back at the schedules, these two teams have actually already played each other, which is something that you'll pretty much never be able to say in college football again, because of what the weird scheduling situation was this year. These two teams actually played each other back on September the 19th. Troy won that one 47-14. Would be interesting, certainly, if Middle Tennessee could split the series, but Troy comes in as an 11.5-point favorite. They beat them by over 30 last time, so I do like the Trojans to win over the Blue Raiders in this one. 3:30 p.m. Big Ten Network. We've got 0-4 Penn State hosting 2-2 Iowa. I got to tell you, Penn State. You could say for Ohio State in the Big Ten, until proven otherwise, I'm going to keep picking Ohio State probably. Until proven otherwise, I'm going to pick against Penn State because this team keeps getting worse to me anyway. I am going with Iowa on the road, who is a 2.5-point favorite on the road against Penn State, by the way. I'm going with the Hawkeyes to move to 3-2. Penn State is just awful. That's all you can really say about that. 3:30 on CBS. This is really weird to think about here. There is no, I guess, SEC game in this 3:30 CBS slot for whatever reason. Nevada is hosting San Diego State in that slot. San Diego State, a 1.5-point favorite on the road. I'm actually going to roll with the Nevada Wolfpack in this one. I do like this Nevada team, what I've seen from them so far. Both of these teams are good. San Diego State at 3-1, Nevada 4-0 coming into this one. I'm rolling with Nevada at home in this football game on CBS. They have just really impressed me thus far, including an impressive early win over Wyoming, who I still think is a pretty decent football team. San Diego State will be their toughest test yet, I believe, so could definitely see the Aztecs winning on the road here, but Nevada, I think, should be able to pull this one out. 3:30 p.m. Fox Sports 1. This is the last one in that time slot. Cal at Oregon State. Winless on both sides of it. 0-1 Cal, 0-2 Oregon State. Cal is a 3.5-point favorite on the road, and I do like Cal by about that margin on the road in this game. Give me the Golden Bears. We do have a couple of more postponed games mixed in here. So Ole Miss at number 5. Yes, number 5, Texas A&M. That one postponed. Number 22, Texas at Kansas, also postponed. You have to say, for Texas A&M, they are one of the biggest losers of the postponements here, because this is a legit one-loss team who has some quality wins over a team like Florida, who is a top 10 football team, top 5, I guess, football team in some polls at least. This is a really impressive Aggies football team that should want as many chances as possible to prove themselves out there on the football field when it comes time to the college football playoff selections. So Texas A&M really missing out on a chance to maybe go out there and get a good win against Ole Miss this week to pad their resume a little bit. We're going to fly through a few of these here. Number 1, Alabama hosting Kentucky. 4 p.m. SEC Network. Alabama opens as a 30-point favorite here. Crimson Tide all the way. It's going to be a big win for Alabama over Kentucky. Number 17, Iowa State hosting Kansas State. This is a sneaky good game. 4 p.m. on Fox. Iowa State, an 11-point favorite at home. I do like Iowa State at home, but Kansas State, do not sleep on them. They're a pretty good football team. That might be closer than that 11-point margin there. 4 p.m. ESPN 3, Virginia hosting Abilene Christian. Virginia, a 40-point favorite here for a reason. The Cavs win big. 4 p.m. ACC Network, Pitt hosting Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, 3.5-point favorite on the road. I do like the Hokies on the road in this game, probably by more than 3.5, to be quite frank. And then 4 p.m. ESPNU, South Alabama hosting Georgia State. Georgia State, a 3.5-point favorite on the road in that one. I do think Georgia State wins on the road there. We had Louisiana Monroe at Louisiana Tech and UNLV at Colorado State, both canceled. And then we move into the 7 p.m. time slot here. 7 p.m. ESPN, Tennessee at number 23 Auburn. This could be one of the ugliest games of the week because that's just what these teams have been doing lately for the most part. Tennessee has had some of the worst quarterback play at times this year, not every game, but at times they have had some of the worst quarterback play in the entire SEC outside of Georgia, of course, which has just been a nightmare situation at quarterback all year long. We'll get to that in just a moment, by the way. And number 23, Auburn. Bo Nix has had his moments where he looked really bad as well. Now, fortunately for Auburn, Bo Nix has also had some moments where he looked really good at quarterback. It's just his decision-making seems questionable at best. He forces some balls that he just doesn't have any reason to force. They are significantly better as a team, Auburn, that is, than Tennessee, so they should win this game. They're a 10.5-point favorite. I think Auburn covers in this one. I do like the Tigers there. 7 p.m. CBS Sports Network, San Jose State on the road against Fresno State. Another kind of sneaky good game here. San Jose State 4-0. Fresno State just one loss at 3-1. San Jose State about a field goal favorite on the road, and I do think they win by that margin or more on the road against Fresno State. Give me San Jose State to go 5-0. 7:30 p.m. on the SEC Network. Like I said, we're going to get into that Georgia quarterback talk. Number 13, Georgia, is hosting Mississippi State. Mississippi State, of course, has been one of the worst teams in the SEC this year, probably second only to Vanderbilt in that regard. Georgia, on the other hand, has, for the most part, been good. They're 4-2, but what have you looked at for Georgia? Of course, they've lost in their two biggest kind of must-win to move the program forward type of games. They lost on the road against Alabama, and they lost in neutral site action against Florida. Looked bad at quarterback in both of those games. Stetson Bennett is not the guy for Georgia at quarterback moving forward. Dwan Mathis doesn't look like the guy either for Georgia at quarterback moving forward. They have not played JT Daniels, and they have not played Carson Beck. Carson Beck, of course, a true freshman quarterback. Maybe you understand that a little bit. Maybe even if he is a super talented guy, maybe he just doesn't have the knowledge of the playbook yet. JT Daniels, however, a former 5-star quarterback, transferred over. He played an entire season at USC, just, I believe, the second ever true freshman to start at USC at quarterback. So logic tells you that guy has to be better than what you're seeing out there, but the fact that he hasn't played yet tells you, well, maybe not. Maybe he's even worse somehow. I think we're going to find out this weekend, because all sources seem to indicate after an ugly loss to Florida, which could have been uglier, by the way. That game could have gone really sideways early in the favor of the Gators. After that really ugly loss and then a bye week and maybe a little bit of a shoulder injury still that Stetson Bennett is dealing with at quarterback, it appears that Georgia might be leaning in the direction of JT Daniels to start at quarterback. By the way, for all my diehard Georgia fans out there, it looks like there's rumors too that they're going to break out the black jerseys, which we haven't seen in 4 years, I guess, at this point, and prior to that, had not seen in several years. This is a team that needs something fresh at quarterback, that needs to find a spark offensively, and that just needs to build on the end of this season for next year. Your goals are shot if you're the Georgia Bulldogs. You need to figure out who you are so that next year you can be as good as you possibly can be and try to bounce back and win the East like you did in 2017, 18, 19. I do think JT Daniels, you have to give him at least a look in this game. You have to put him out there, see how he does. If he makes a couple mistakes, leave him out there for a little bit longer. Obviously, if you're in danger of losing to Mississippi State, that's a big problem, and you need to put somebody else out there maybe. But Georgia has got to use this game to figure out who their option is at quarterback going forward. Georgia will win this game, quite frankly, regardless of who they play at quarterback. But you should take the time to figure things out in this game if you're the Georgia Bulldogs. 7:30 p.m. ABC, we've got Bedlam. Number 18, Oklahoma, hosting number 14, Oklahoma State. 5-2, Oklahoma, 5-1, Oklahoma State in this one. This game very well could determine the Big 12 champion. It is tough going in the Big 12. Texas has 2 losses. Oklahoma has 2 losses. Oklahoma State just 1 loss. Iowa State has 2 losses. Throw them into the mix as well. Things are interesting in the Big 12. It's going to come down to some tiebreakers for sure when we're getting into the Big 12 championship game here. Oklahoma is a 7-point favorite in this game. Just for the chaos, I have to pick Oklahoma in this game because that would put us in a situation where Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State could potentially come out of this week, all 4 of them with just 2 losses, and that is just crazy talk. Some of that will get settled in the final weeks of the regular season, but it's going to be really, really interesting going down the stretch in the Big 12 to see who emerges, who separates themselves from the pack and wins the Big 12 this year. They have pretty much played themselves out of the playoff. I think Oklahoma State, if they were to win out, including that Big 12 championship game, maybe there's an outside chance at them making a college football playoff this year. But everybody else has played themselves out of it, and I think the Big 12 as a whole has already played themselves out of it. It is just a weird year in the Big 12, but I'm going to go with the Sooners at home in this game. We've got number 21 Liberty on the road against NC State. This is 7:30 p.m. on ESPN3. NC State about a 3.5-point favorite over the Flames in this game, which is weird to me because Liberty has already beaten Virginia Tech, who I personally feel is a better team than NC State this year. NC State 5-3 at this point. Liberty, of course, is 8-0. I am going with Hugh Freeze and the Liberty Flames on the road to beat another quality ACC opponent in the NC State Wolfpack. So give me the slight upset there for the number 21 Liberty Flames. I think they continue to prove they are legit. There is a very real chance, though, that I am, of course, willing to acknowledge that NC State wins this game. They're a good football team. They're at home. Liberty is beatable, certainly. They're certainly beatable. They have played a lot of games against weak opponents to pad that record, no doubt, but I do like the Flames on the road here. 7:30 SEC Network alternate. We've got Missouri on the road against South Carolina. 2-3 Missouri, 2-5 South Carolina. Missouri about a 6.5-point favorite on the road. The week after South Carolina fired Will Muschamp, Mike Bobo, the offensive coordinator there at South Carolina, is the interim head coach for the rest of this season. Time will tell who their head coach will be going forward. I don't know how much faith I can put in this South Carolina team that seems allergic to winning right now, especially with an interim head coach in his first game as the interim head coach. But I do think in general South Carolina is a better team than Missouri. So you know what? I'm going to say maybe they get a little bit of juice here, and I'm going to give it to the Gamecocks at home. They let me down last week when I picked them. I picked them to win on the road against Ole Miss. Not only did they lose, they lost bad enough to fire the head coach. I'm going to give it to the Gamecocks at home in this one, though, over what I think is a pretty middling, at best, Missouri team. We have Michigan on the road against Rutgers. Who thought these teams would have the same record coming into this one? Both 1-3, 7:30 on the Big Ten Network. Michigan a 7.5-point favorite. I do like Michigan to bounce back a little bit. Even if it is not a sexy win, I do think they get a win this weekend over Rutgers on the road. Arizona at Washington, that's 8 p.m. on Fox. Washington, an 11-point favorite over the Wildcats in this one. I do like Washington. The Huskies should pick up the win here. Washington just 1-0 thus far. Arizona, of course, 0-1 with that loss. Very close loss, admittedly, against a good USC team, but I am going to give it to the Huskies. Real quick, we had Georgia at number 12, Miami postponed, Navy at South Florida postponed, and Arizona State at Colorado outright canceled. 3 last games we're going to fly through here. Number 20, USC at Utah. I'll take just a few moments to talk about this one. 10:30 ESPN. Pac-12 After Dark is back with this game. I think it's going to be a crazy game. USC has played 2 really close ones. Utah has not played a game yet. I think Utah is going to take USC to the wire. And there is a chance that Utah wins this game at home. USC as a 3-point favorite. I might actually take Utah +3 in this game, but I think USC is going to find a way to win yet another close one on the road here. Washington State at Stanford, 10:30 on Fox Sports 1. Again, the Pac-12 After Dark action here. Stanford a 2-point favorite, even though they're 0-2, hosting 1-1 Washington State. I like Washington State actually on the road in this one in a slight upset. They looked pretty good for most of that game against Oregon. And then Boise State at Hawaii, 11 p.m. CBS Sports Network. Boise is a 14-point favorite. I like Boise to win this one fairly comfortably by probably a couple of touchdowns. And that's going to wrap us up for our Week 12, I guess this is. Yeah, Week 12 preview. We are here, like I said, Thursday, picking all those games for tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday night. A lot of great games to look forward to, despite some postponed and canceled games this weekend. If you want to keep up with all the scores, keep up with all the action, make sure to follow us on Twitter. At Upset Alert Pod. We're on all your favorite podcast services, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google, etc. So find us on your podcast service of choice. Follow us, subscribe to us on there. And if you can, take the time to leave us that 5-star review as well. Helps us greatly to get more eyeballs and more ears on the podcast. Once again, I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Shout out to Sippy Show for hanging out in the Twitch chat at twitch.tv/robotbraineater. Shout out to you all for listening, however you joined us today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, whether you're listening today on Thursday or later on. And until Monday for our weekly wrap-up episode, we will see you later.